let's just start with the hardest region. Let's just knock it out and just kind of give
Hardest region according to who, though? Because you and I are split on that one. That's a little bit of a split coverage we got there. You think obviously that East region with Duke is going to be the hardest. I think the West with Arizona. Why don't we just start with East and Duke? That's kind of the order that the selection committee went with for us. So
yeah. Then we'll bounce over to the second hardest. We'll go right over to the West on who you think's the toughest region. So
fair enough.
We got the 1 versus 16 seed here. We got Duke and Siena. It's Duke.
Any chance we see a 16 versus 1 upset this year?
Hello, Virginia. I think UMBC's in here, right? The team that
they are
Virginia,
yes.
The 1 versus 16
they're in the
seed.
play-in game. Scrolling real quick. Yeah. Wait a second.
Okay, so I'm gonna be rooting for Howard pretty dang hard for the first game.
That's fair.
I want to see UMBC. But no, I got Duke, and it's not close.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Who do you got for the Ohio
State and TCU? Tough matchup here. All these 8-9s are going to be pretty tough. I actually really liked Ohio State, the finish to their season. I would have loved to see him beat Michigan, of course, in the Big Ten tournament. I think that would have actually put him on a 7 seed. And I guess, I think they could have been a 7 seed, to be honest with you, looking at some of the other ones. I'm going to pick Ohio State here. I have a little bit of a Big Ten bias, not because that's where my team is affiliated with, but because I think the Big Ten is a pretty deep league this year. We have the top end teams, obviously Purdue and Michigan. And we got some pretty good teams in the depth as well. So I have Ohio State here. I know TCU is a tough matchup for them. But I think, Bruce Thornton, he's one of those bigger guards. He's a senior. He's got the experience. I think he'll be able to, again, he'll will them. He has what it takes when the back's against the wall. So Ohio State's my pick here. What are you going with?
See, this was a coin flip one for me. Michigan saw TCU early in the year, and Michigan went to TCU and struggled. And TCU just plays really sound defense. They are ranked, I think, 22nd in the country in defensive efficiency. But then you have Ohio State, who ranks in the top 20 for offense. So it's really going to be, pick your poison. I think I have to agree with you on this take just because of the backcourt. I think Mobley and Thornton are going to be the difference makers. And in March, the backcourts, if you have even if you have one, but let alone two strong guards, I think that's going to be the difference. I think this is going to be a really close one, though. I'm not 110% sold that Ohio State wins this. I could see this going either way, but I think I'd just, gun pointed ahead, I would go with Ohio State here.
Yep, right there with you. St. John's, Northern Iowa. This is, I believe, Northern Iowa's first ever time dancing in March. They are going against a pretty strong 5 seed. St. John's, Rick Pitino, Hall of Fame coach, went to the Final Four, however many teams he's done it with. This is going to be St. John's penciled in for me. I don't see a 12-5 upset, which I know you have some stats on in terms of how popular that upset has been in the recent years, but I don't see this as being that area where it happens.
Yeah, I think I'll get to the fun stats when it's actually a more of a upset type of game. I think St. John's has this one pretty easily.
Yeah. Okay. Kansas and California Baptist. We got a 4-13 matchup here. What are we thinking?
Yeah, this is another one of those where it's like the 4-13 has gone in ways where the 4 seed goes down here, but Kansas, they have that star power. They have Darren Peterson, which, hopefully he shows out this tournament and actually plays. And when he does, he's electric. He's going to be either your first or second overall pick in the NBA draft. So I got Kansas here.
Yeah. I could see this one just because of the inconsistency and health and just availability of Kansas and their star player. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. I think they got enough talent. I think Bill Self he's a great coach himself, pun intended. I have no problem penciling Kansas here.
Gotcha. Now we got Louisville and South Florida. So this is your team right here. Louisville.
This is one of the teams for sure.
Yeah. So South Florida is tough. They're a tough team. But Louisville, they have Conwell, who's I know when he played at, I think it was last year, I know Michigan went up against him. It might have been, it was one of the teams. It was either Providence, Seton Hall, one of those teams in that conference. But he's a great scorer. Hopefully, Mikael Brown comes back from his injury. I heard he's injured right now. That could play pretty pivotal. I mean, brings 18 points a game to the table. So if he's out, that this game could shift a little bit. But I think, the top 25 rule doesn't lie. And I think Louisville will take down South Florida and advance to the round of 32. Where do you got with that game? I mean, obviously, I kind of feel where your sleeper Cinderella team is.
I got to follow the data a little bit with this one. I also, for what it's worth, I think this is a tough matchup for Louisville. If they had any other 6-11, I would feel a lot more confident, but USF winning their conference tournament, they just looked the part, of a team that can upset a team or two in the big tournament. I just think Louisville, maybe the injury does impact him, but we don't know based on the write-up that we had here. We don't know if he's going to miss the actual tournament or not. So kind of TBD on that, because I've talked so much about injuries in this one, but I'm good penciling in Louisville here. I refuse to let anybody choose the North Dakota State upset over Michigan State. I actually don't. You can pick that if you want. This is definitely not a penciled in pick. I just think that there is something about the team that'll be a little bit more riled up after coming out so sluggish and slow and bad against UCLA. We have good depth, even with some of the injuries we've had. And I think eventually we'll be able to dominate the boards. We'll be able to defend North Dakota State. And I think we can escape with the win in this first round.
Yeah. Let's pencil Michigan State in. I'm not going to give you guys too many compliments. We'll keep going through.
All right, bet. All right, bet.
All right. So UCLA, UCF. This one's one of your tough ones. I know everyone's on, we were talking UCLA, they are great. I'm a little nervous with their injury concerns right now. You got the 10-7 matchup where there's it's pretty much a 60-40 split. So 60% of the times the 7 seed wins, 40% of the times the 10 seed wins. So it's a dang near coin flip there too.
Yep.
UCLA, Bilodeau got injured against you guys. It sounds like he should be possibly ready for the first game. Donovan Dent was also against Purdue. He went out in the first half. They said it was an ankle injury. At first, they said lower leg injury. They said at first it was hamstring. I guess who knows what it is. So with them, if they have those two, I don't think I would pick against UCLA. But I think if they're down one of those two players,
that'd be big.
I think I would lean UCF. So I think this is the one where it's like we don't know who's going to be playing for UCLA. If there was a clear cut, their players are returning, they're going to all be playing. I think I would take UCLA, but I think with the unknown and the health status of their two best players, I think I'm going to go UCF here.
Let's do it.
But I'm open to discussion and hearing from you on, if you have objections. If you can win me over, I'll be like, UCLA, we'll do it. I think that's what we're doing with this.
Here's what I'll say. Even if they play, they might be playing through an injury, and that could be detrimental in itself. Even if they're fully recovered. Here's the thing about UCLA. They were so good at home this year. They struggled mightily on the road in Big Ten play. Yeah. And my theory on that, and there's some research from the March Madness tournament to back this up, teams that are traveling multiple time zones east, which they will be traveling east from California all the way over. I forget where their actual matchup is, but it's in the East Coast, Eastern time zone. That's going to be maybe an adjustment for them. And they struggled to make that adjustment in the regular season. They did fly to Central time zone in Chicago to beat Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. But I think that might be another trend. I think right now UCLA is going to be a hot pick based on how they've played recently. And I'm fine penciling in UCF here. I think there's going to be some instances where those hot picks, those hot teams aren't always going to pan out. There's going to be something that comes up. I think injuries could be the one. And I think traveling across 3 different time zones, I think is another one. I'm cool with penciling UCF here.
Okay, yeah, we'll get our first 10-7
10-7
upset,
upsets. Let's do
and
it.
that it's a good stat to kind of highlight too, is that since 1985, the 7 seeds have never swept the 10 seeds. So I think right
Mm,
there,
interesting.
we're working for this perfect bracket right now for you guys, and I think we're kind of trending in that direction with kind of getting that right with
Yeah.
getting a 10 seed in there over a 7. But next matchup, I got UConn. I don't think there's much to speak on
Yeah.
here. I think
Don't
it's
have to talk too much about this one.
Yep.
Yep. Again, do we think a Long Island upset over Arizona, or do we have another 1 seed moving on?
We got another 1 seed, a pretty dominant 1
Yep.
seed moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Villanova, Utah State. So I'll be the first to say I don't know a ton about these two teams. All that I know about them are some of the stats I've seen on paper and some of the selection show committee members, what they said. Based on some of their comments, I think I like Utah State in this one based on how they can score. And I think Villanova, I know it's not supposed to happen, but they might be relying on a little bit of their brand name to maybe get that 8 seed and maybe get favored a little bit here. I think I pencil in Utah State, but this is one where I'm pretty ignorant in the matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, Utah State coming off of their Mountain West tournament championship, and they also won their regular season title. They won both the tournament and the regular season. They ranked 28th in the offensive efficiency, and they're also at I think 11th in the nation in 2-point field goals. So they're efficient on offense, and Villanova, they shoot the D ball pretty well. I just don't think they have the guard play to do much.
Yep.
And I got Utah State winning that one as well.
Yeah. Okay. One of the streakier teams, hotter teams that has definitely challenged Michigan in the last couple of days, but also beat Michigan earlier in the year, Wisconsin versus a very high-powered, pun intended, high-point team. What are your thoughts on this matchup here? 5-12, maybe into a potential upset?
Yeah. So this is the one I've had to think quite some time on this one. I was going back and forth in my head on who I thought would win this one. High Point, I think they're ranked 3rd in the country in points per game. I think they're at about 90 points per game. They're very high octane offense. But I saw Wisconsin twice this year. They played against Michigan twice, and their guard play with Boyd and Blackwell, and they got big guys too that can stretch the floor and shoot. Rap on Wisconsin just hit 6 straight threes against us, and literally just pulled Wisconsin back. They were down 15, put them up by 3 within a few minutes of just hitting 6 threes in a row, and that's their center. I think just the test and the battle that the Big Ten has given a lot of the Big Ten teams are going to set them up for success in this tournament. I think it's going to be close, but I got Wisconsin beating High Point.
I agree. I think Wisconsin's one of my dark horses. They were one of my dark horses to win the Big Ten tournament, and I feel like they came pretty close. If they got through Wisconsin, nobody knows what would happen against Purdue, or if they got through Michigan. I think they got the guard play. We'll talk a lot about guard play in March. A lot of good guards in this West bracket. I think they'll sustain the high-powered offensive High Point because they can match them. I think if they were a team, if Michigan State drew High Point, I'd be a little bit concerned because High Point could put up 40 points and a half, 45 points and a half, and Michigan State might just not be able to kind of climb out of that like UCLA. But I'm cool with Wisconsin for this next matchup. I know you have Arkansas as a potential dark horse. How do you like their matchup against Hawaii?
Yeah, I didn't put much thought into this game. I think Arkansas. I think they're getting hot at the right time.
Yes.
Just SEC tournament, just coming out, winning that. Didn't have to go through Florida or anything, but it's just, they're getting hot at the right time. They're gelling. I watched today's game against Vanderbilt. They look good. They're coached really well. So I got Arkansas beating Hawaii pretty easily.
Yeah, this is one of the interesting things I saw on Twitter earlier today is Hawaii and their style of defense. So they play a no-help defense. So when you run a ball screen against Hawaii, they will not help on that backside towards the paint. And it works for some of the smaller conferences because the guards aren't at that elite level of turning the corner, having multiple tricks in their bag of how to score, how to dish it out. I think Darius Acuff could score 40 points against these guys if that's how they're going to play him. And if that's how they played all year, I don't know if they got another strategy. So good for Hawaii on making it. I just see Arkansas as a buzzsaw right now. Totally agree.
Gotcha. Yeah, so this brings us into the first four in when it comes to Texas, and I think North Carolina State breaking that game down. I think who's the transfer for Michigan State? Doesn't he play for North Carolina
Trey
State?
Holloman.
Trey
Yeah,
Holloman.
he
Okay,
plays,
gotcha.
that's for sure. He goes on the court. I don't know how much of an impact he makes, but man, he's there.
But yeah, so I think North Carolina State wins the first game, and I think it'll be North Carolina State versus BYU. This one was another one where I had to think about it a little bit longer. BYU just been so inconsistent up and down, relying on AJ DeMonsta. If they, if a team stops him, they got Rob Wright that can take over as well. He's a really good scorer. With the Saunders injury for BYU, I think that hurt them quite a bit. He was their lethal 3-point shooter, was a really good scorer. I think he was averaging 15 points a game at the time. And losing him, I think just, is kind of the reason why BYU is a 6 seed, because they were, cruising, on the top. I mean, they came into the season highly ranked, and was sustaining that throughout the year. And then, the last, stretch of the season, they kind of hit a bump. But I'm still picking BYU. Through all that, I don't think these two teams, I mean, they got into the tournament. They're going to have that game. I think BYU sneaks by North Carolina State. Where are you at on this one?
I think Texas takes the game against North Carolina State. I'll start with that one. And I could see him beating BYU. And I know I talked about that top end talent that they have. It just, that inconsistency might come to play. Texas might have some of the guys because they can recruit. They got some guys on their team that might be able to just figure some things out. I don't necessarily need to pick an upset. I don't need to completely strong arm you here on it. I could see it happening. These are also matchups every year in the bracket I have a hard time with, because if Texas wins, I think I would pick Texas to win against BYU. But if NC State wins, I think I'd pick BYU. And that's a lot of risk in terms of like, which one do I go with? So I'm cool with penciling in BYU. I think, like I said earlier, that stat where all the past national champions have the top end talent. I don't think BYU is going to win it all, but I think that talent can get them at least to the round of 32.
Gotcha.
Gonzaga, Kennesaw State. Any thoughts here on a 14-3 upset? I personally don't see it happening. I see Gonzaga pretty well prepared for this level of competition and kind of just controlling the pace of the game throughout.
Yeah, let's get the Zags penciled in on that one. Miami, Missouri. So this one is, that 10-7 matchup where it's, I can't say I've watched either team too much. I know Donaldson from Michigan does play for Miami, and he's been tearing it up. I personally, they have a good backcourt. They got it. I think their coach for Miami is the first year. I think it's his name's like Lucas. It's his first year. Because they went 7-24 last season. So the turnaround, they made a big turnaround. They finished third in the ACC, and the ACC is nothing to really rap about. I think with Missouri being an SEC and just being battle tested, the SEC had 10 teams in the tournament, the most out of any conference. They have an elite scorer in Mark Mitchell. I think that Missouri wins this one in a close one. But where are you at on this one?
I actually am right there with you. I know we had the 10-7 upset for UCF. That's more hinged on injuries for UCLA. I think this one just straight up, I think Missouri comes out and wins it. I think they're like you said, they're more battle tested. I think they got the better guys. I think Miami's a good story, but this is one of my upsets that I got. So we're totally aligned on that one.
Awesome. And then we got Queens,
Purdue and Queens. Not going to say anything there. I will say I don't know anything about Queens. I assumed this college was in the Queens borough of New York. It is actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. Fun fact for all of our listeners who did not know that. Doesn't really make a difference.
Wasn't even close. I was thinking, definitely wasn't.
had no clue. So, all right, we got this one filled out. We'll go ahead and go down to the bottom half of the bracket here and keep it going. Might try to speed up some of this. I know this is kind of getting through here, but there's just a lot to break down here. We just love this stuff. This is exactly, I don't want to say it's what we live for, but man, this week of the year is one of the best. Let's go ahead and go to the Midwest here. The easiest bracket, according to both of you and I. Do we see Michigan choking in that first game if UMBC makes it in, or do we just go ahead and pencil them in?
We're penciling them in. We don't care. Bring on UMBC at this point. I know I said bring on Howard. I want UMBC. We'll show them what a real number one seed is.
You want the Ramblers.
Yes, we'll take them on.
Georgia, St. Louis, I'll be honest, this is another one, these 8-9 matchups, some of them I don't have a lot of knowledge on. I know Georgia's battle tested in the SEC. I look at the lines here, sometimes the odds, they're only 1.5 point favorites over a St. Louis team that doesn't have the brand that a lot of these other teams do. That tells me that is a pretty evenly matched game. Do you have any thoughts, any hard leans this way? I know we all remember Robbie Avila from Indiana State. Was it last year, 2 years ago, the kind of March Madness sensation? Might be something to say about that. What do you think?
Yeah, this one was another tough one for me. You have Georgia. Coming from the SEC, battle tested. They ranked 5th nationally in scoring at almost 90 points per game. They run a very high tempo type of offense. So I think it's going to come down to St. Louis's. Are they going to be able to slow them down? Because St. Louis does rank 13th nationally in defense. So is that going to translate to be able to slow down Georgia and play St. Louis and how they want to play the game? Or are they just going to let Georgia dictate how they get the ball up and down the court without allowing St. Louis to get into their defense? With all that being said, I'm going to go with St. Louis. I think St. Louis is going to win this game. I think Avila, that he's the face of that team. And I think they'll take down Georgia.
Yeah, I'll side with you on that one. Like I said, I like the idea of a high-powered offense maybe being able to overwhelm someone like St. Louis, but I also think that experience of having someone who's been there deep in a tournament, knows how to prepare for that first-round game, knows how to be the underdog in some of the matchups. I'm good with penciling St. Louis to take on Michigan.
Awesome.
Akron, the MAC champions, the 2-bid MAC league, the MAC champions going against the Texas Tech Red Raiders without, of course, one of the best players in the league, JT Toppin. What do we think here? I have some thoughts on this one, but curious what you're thinking.
Yeah, two great guards on both teams for Texas Tech and Akron. I think this is another one where it could go either way. I don't know enough about both teams. I know JT Toppin is out, but they have Christian Anderson who's been stepping up. I think I'm still leaning Texas Tech, and I know a lot of the analysis is going towards Akron, and a lot of the upset picks are going Akron's way. But I think Texas Tech finds a way to get out of it. I think they just Big 12 was another powerhouse conference, and I think Texas Tech, they found ways to win without Toppin. They've had plenty of time to kind of adjust into how they want to play without him. It wasn't like a last minute right before the tournament. Like, they've had plenty of games to play without him. And I think a team like Akron, great story, 12 seed making it into the tournament, but I think Texas Tech takes this one.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm feeling. I think Texas Tech is strong enough still, well-oiled team, guys who have been there. Christian Anderson's absolutely been taking as much of that on his shoulders as he can. This is one where I wanted to pick Akron. I think Akron's a dangerous team in this tournament. Yes. I wouldn't be too surprised to see this upset, but here's the thing. If I saw Akron matched up against Alabama, the 4 seed right underneath them, I'd pick Akron. If I saw Akron matched up with Tennessee, the 6 seed, I'd pick Akron. If I saw them matched up with Virginia, the 3 seed, I'd pick Akron. I just think Texas Tech has, like you said, they figured it out. They still got the guys. They still got the top end talent. Battle tested Houston, Arizona, Kansas, the whole Big 12 gauntlet that went through this year. I think, I don't want to, go on record, but I think they'll win this one with relative ease in a bit of a surprise, like you said, because this might be a pretty heavy upset pick.
Yep. And for this one, I got Alabama. I got Alabama winning. Their offense is great. I think their defense is gonna come by to catch them with not maybe defending the ball too well, but I think the offense. I don't know much about. I don't even know how to say the team. Hofstra, I think
Hofstra.
is how it's pronounced. Yeah, I don't know anything about this team, and I know Alabama's just got the best offense in the country. So I think that's what's going to help them prevail and move on to the round of 32.
Yeah, I don't know much about him either. Just reading this ESPN overview here, it says they do lean on a dynamic backcourt. They're good defensively, but they highlight that being inside the arc, so the 2-point defense and really heavy rim protection. I think it's a bad matchup for them because Alabama's not gonna. Maybe they'll dribble drive to kick it out, but they pride themselves on that 3-point shot. They got the guys who can make it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the higher scoring, like 100 to 70, final score games that we have in the first round.
Gotcha. All right.
Tennessee versus the other playing games. We got the Miami of Ohio Redhawks and then the SMU Mustangs. Start with that matchup. How do you feel about what are they, 32-1 now? Miami Redhawks going against SMU and then their matchup against Tennessee.
Yeah, I think Miami, Ohio, great that they got in. But they are going against a very good SMU team.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think I think that's where the road's going to end. I don't even think they're even going to have a shot to play Tennessee. I think SMU will beat Miami of Ohio. But then, even with then you kind of match up, you got SMU, Tennessee. Tennessee's been dealing with injuries, but it sounds like they're fully healthy, at least from reports. They got Gillespie. I don't even know how to say his name.
Gillespie, yeah. Or Gillespie,
yeah, whatever you say. Yeah, he's very experienced, great guard. I think Tennessee wins over SMU. But I was trying to, like, in my head somehow come up with a way Miami Ohio was going to win that against SMU and then beat Tennessee and make this just like crazy run.
Man, I don't see it. I think there's something to be said at some point about who they have played, who they've beaten. They're just not as battle tested as a team like Tennessee coming out of the SEC. Tennessee's got the guys. A lot of Miami of Ohio wins this year are close. I think they deserve a chance to dance. I'll be the first to put my hand up and say I was completely wrong with them, but I agree with you. I think SMU handles them in that first 4 matchup. And I don't think SMU necessarily has the steam to keep up with Tennessee. Rick Barnes and a Tennessee squad as a 6 seed in March Madness, they seem like another 6 seed that might be able to do some damage. We talked about Louisville in the other region, but I'm good with Tennessee here too.
Yep, and that moves us on to the 3-14 matchup with Virginia and Wright State. Virginia is an interesting one. They're always it's like that team that just is it's a very gritty team. It's something about Virginia, even when they had Tony Bennett at their coach. It's just a very like defensive minded team.
Always,
and they played Duke. They did play Duke tough in that championship game. And it could have gone either way. Yeah, Duke's shorthanded, but Virginia is going to win this one, and they're going to get past Wright State. And I think they're going to hold Wright State to probably under 60, and I think that's what's
like 45 points or something crazy.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us to a 7-10 matchup. We have picked the 10 seed in the first 2 7-10 matchups. Kentucky versus Santa Clara. I like the upset here also for Santa Clara. That's going to be something where I don't know if I want to go through this and pick all the 10 seeds, but for some reason, that Kentucky squad, again, I look at the line here, the game odds. Sometimes Vegas knows more than us, no matter how much we research. They're basically calling this game a wash, just a toss up. And for them to say that, for Vegas to say that is pretty telling. I know Kentucky's got some guys, but Mark Pope hasn't seemed like he's been able to fully gel with this team the last 2 years that you would expect a coach of Kentucky. You kind of see Calipari leave and he immediately takes Arkansas to the levels that he took Kentucky to almost. I think Santa Clara has a potential for an upset here. What about you?
Yeah, I think Santa Clara is probably the best 10 seed in the tournament. So you think about Kentucky, and this is, I don't know. There's just not that go-to player on their team, and they've just been too inconsistent, like you said. Pope, their coach. I think he has. I think this is probably his last year. I think he's going to get an early round exit, and I think he's gone. I don't think he's fitting the mold of what they want at Kentucky.
I agree.
He's just been too inconsistent. I got Santa Clara. I think it's their first time being in the tournament in like 30 years. I think they're going to use a little bit of their juice to make a little bit of a run, prove their point, and just get that upset in that 7-10 matchup. That's pretty common to happen each year.
Yeah. Bottom right here, we got Iowa State as the 2 seed taking on Tennessee State, the 15 seed. I think the Cyclones are suffocating on defense, kind of like Virginia, up a couple games over in this bracket. I see them being able to suffocate anything that Tennessee State tries to throw at them. I think we saw some of their performances against Arizona being able to really play at that high octane offensive level while also being able to somewhat contain a very high octane offense themselves. I don't see a 15-2 upset here.
Yeah. It's penciling Iowa State with ease.
All right. Last region, we got the South region. Florida Gators are the 4th number 1 seed. They will be playing either Prairie View or Lehigh. Both of these teams are some of the worst rated on KenPom. I don't see there any chance of any upset happening here.
Yeah. We go Gators quick on that one.
Yep.
We got the 8-9.
Yeah, another 8-9.
Yeah.
What are we taking here?
Yeah, this one was another tough one. I mean, I Michigan played Iowa. I've seen Iowa play, and it's like the Bennett Sturts team. Yep. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, they had a crazy stat that said he was averaging, I think, 40.1 minutes a game. I mean, that's more than a full game. I mean, because you're adding in.
He's playing through overtimes too. Yeah,
he's not taking a break. I mean, this guy is playing every second of every game, which is insane. And Iowa's offense, they can get hot, especially from 3. I mean, I think they're ranked 25th in offense. And then you have a team like Clemson that plays more bully ball type of game in the paint with Godfrey, but you have an offense and a defensive battle here because Clemson is more of your get down, get dirty type of team, and you have Iowa who's just like I'll just spray it from 3 with Bennett Sturts. So with Clemson's defense, they're ranked 20th, and then you have Iowa who's 25th in offense. This is a coin flip type of game. And obviously you see here, it's pretty much, America's thinking similar, leaning Iowa. Let's hear your pick first. I think I'm a little stuck on this one. This one's going back and forth still.
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I'm looking at the notable results here that ESPN provides us. Both of these teams really lost a lot of their notable games, right? They really lack that signature win that's like showing the high potential. They both have a decent wins. Clemson does have the Louisville Cardinals on their win sheet, which is obviously one of my dark horses. I think it's going to come down to this. Iowa doesn't have the depth, and Bennett Sturts is going to play every minute. Clemson, in their little note here, they have 9 players that average 18 plus minutes per game. They will be rotating guys in. I think they'll be able to use that to their advantage in this setting. And if they can maybe press, if they can stretch the floor, if they can attack Bennett Sturts, I think they'll be able to get Iowa on their heels and just continue to throw bodies at them. It's kind of what Michigan State is supposed to do when things are working well, where you just throw so many bodies and guys who are willing to get down and dirty, like you said. I'm picking up Clemson here as I think it's a technical Vegas upset because I was favored by 1.5. But it's an 8 seed versus a 9 seed, essentially always a toss up. I'm going to go Clemson. Do you have any hard objections?
No, I was leaning Clemson through my explanation with you, but I wasn't
sold
on it, and I wanted.
You had to get my confirmation to feel real good. I get it. I get it. All right, Vanderbilt McNeese. Vanderbilt's one of your teams you mentioned as a potential dark horse. They looked really good in the SEC tournament. Came up a little bit short against Arkansas. McNeese is also kind of a sneaky good 12 seed. What do you think here initially?
Yeah. I think Vanderbilt with the matchup it's not, with it being my sleeper team, it's like I'm not like too confident with the matchup, just because McNeese State is a solid team.
Mhm.
So I'm going to stick with my Cinderella sleeper pick with Vanderbilt. Just, I think they are, I mean, they got through the SEC tournament and made it all the way and just ran into my other sleeper team, Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I think they've gotten some good quality wins this year, has faced some tough teams, seen it all in the SEC.
Yeah.
So I do have Vanderbilt overcoming. I think, it'll be close in the beginning. I think Vanderbilt pulls away by, a double-digit win.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time going against that too. I like McNeese, and maybe a different matchup. I'd pick them. Notably, I will call out at least that this 10.5 spread for Vanderbilt feels a little low. It feels like with the way Vanderbilt rolled through that SEC tournament, and Duke Miles played really good today. Tyler Tanner did not in that game. I think that was essentially the difference maker. If Tyler Tanner I think at one point he was shooting less than like 15% from the field. If he kind of started a little bit hotter, I think that game might have been a little bit different. So just something to keep in mind there, a 12-5 potential upset. I just think Vanderbilt can continue rolling with that momentum.
And then we get to the Cornhuskers. Are they going
Huskers
to
versus
win?
Troy versus your namesake here?
Hey, I know it's hard to go against Troy. But Nebraska, I mean, a long time coming. Is this going to be their first ever NCAA win? And it is. It's going to be.
You think so? We will pencil in the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
They started the season 20-0. Was just like, wow, like, is this, this team is really good.
Is this real life?
Yeah, is this real life? Nebraska 20-0. And yeah, they slow, they ran into the juggernauts of the Big Ten, Michigan, Purdue, Illinois. I know they beat Michigan State in the beginning of the year. If they rematch, it'd probably go Michigan State's way. But Nebraska playing, a 13 seed in Troy, I think Nebraska will get their first ever NCAA win here.
Yeah, this is one.
Sorry, not ever, but in the tournament.
Yeah, this is one where I honestly, in some of my brackets, maybe in more brackets than not, I will pencil in Troy here as an upset. I actually think Nebraska has cooled off mightily. I know they did play juggernauts in the Big Ten, but they didn't seem like they had some answers when they were given tests by some of the bigger teams. And I like to believe that even the smaller schools have film, watch film, study these teams. Yeah. I think you give Troy this week to prepare for Nebraska and be able to exploit what they can exploit. I think Nebraska, if we line up all the 4 seeds and top 5 seeds, honestly, they probably have the least amount of talent just in terms of like, who are the guys on the court? Who's going to go get you a bucket? Who's going to be that like top 10 NBA pick type of thing? So I'm cool with penciling the Cornhuskers in here because I love this story for it. Big Ten bias. I'd love for them to get that first March Madness win. But just notable thing, keep in mind. Let's see what the spread is here, actually. Okay, 15.5 is a good number for Nebraska. Vegas isn't too worried, but I don't care what Vegas says sometimes. I might be picking Troy in some of these matchup brackets.
Gotcha.
North Carolina VCU. Tar Heels obviously lost Caleb Wilson for the season, who is going to be a very good NBA player, at least a very good NBA prospect. VCU won their, I think, A10, Atlantic 10 conference championship. I will go ahead first and say I like the VCU Rams here to actually upset North Carolina Tar Heels. I think there's something to be said with teams like Texas Tech who figure out how to adapt without their star players. I don't think North Carolina has essentially elevated to that level. And I think VCU is playing good. They can score the ball really well. I think it's going to be something that 11-6 isn't too big of a shocker. But I think this is one where I can see it happening. And I heard you say you agree.
Yeah, with Caleb Wilson out, I think that was your player you went through, and I don't think they've still figured out. I mean, when you have a talent of Caleb Wilson that you don't have anymore, they don't really have a second guy that could step up. And VCU's won 16 out of their last 17 games. Like, they're on a heater right now. Where
they're rolling.
Maybe if you match them up against a different 6 seed, possibly. A more healthy 6 seed, maybe they get, maybe they, lose out in that 6-11 matchup. But I think with North Carolina being shorthanded without Caleb Wilson, I got VCU with the upset there as well.
Yeah. All right. Nice. We're pretty in alignment here. This is nice. I know this next matchup has got one of your darlings that you've been a fan of, just in terms of thinking they'll win, not necessarily rooting for them or anything.
Yeah.
Illinois against Penn. I'm going to make this one quick. I think the Illini actually handle Penn very easily. I know Fran McCaffrey coached in the Big Ten at Iowa a couple years ago. He's going against Illinois. Brad Underwood, he's had multiple matchups with. I just think the Illini, they do have the high-powered offense. They might start to come together, kind of like we saw Purdue come together with a team that's got the pieces. They might start figuring it out. I also did take a sneak peek at this line. 20.5 is huge for a 3-14 matchup. I would have expected the Illini defense to kind of be susceptible to an upset, especially with what Penn did today in their conference championship. And I forget the name of the gentleman who absolutely went crazy for 40 points, but that would be my one sketchy part of Illinois. But seeing Vegas so confident in them just winning by 20 points, essentially, I'm going to go ahead and say Illinois. Do you have any objections to your darling?
No, Illinois is winning. Penn got lucky to even make it in the tournament, if I'm being honest with you. I think they were playing Yale in the championship. Correct me if I was wrong. And Yale was up by 3, and they allow Penn to shoot a 3 and not.
They didn't foul.
Yep. Yeah, they should have fouled them. Penn shouldn't even be in here. I got Illinois just taking down Penn by 20 plus.
Yep. All right, moment of truth here. Will our perfect bracket have every single 10 seed upset a 7 seed? I'm going to say no. I think St. Mary's goes ahead, dominates the boards against Texas A&M. I think they do have a well-rounded team. We're in agreement here. This is not going to be the year the 10 sweep the 7s.
No. I got St. Mary's winning this one. I mean, they got their front court. They got 2-7-1 guys. They're going to just not allow Texas A&M to get to the rim. And I think Texas A&M is one of those surprise teams where it's like, they're 21-11. They play at a fast pace. St. Mary's doesn't play at a fast pace. I just don't think Texas A&M is going to be able to get in the paint and score with 2 guys that are over the 7 foot. They're going to get, out rebound Texas A&M. They're going to, that 2-point field goal percentage is going to be pretty low for Texas A&M. And I think St. Mary's is going to beat Texas A&M here.
Yeah. And the final matchup of the first round, we have 2-seed Houston Cougars against the 15-seed Idaho. I think they're the Cyclones. That's embarrassing that I don't know what their mascot is, but I think Houston is one of my teams that can take it all the way to win it all, based on the criteria we showed, based on their experience from last year. Kelvin Sampson does a great job. I don't see an upset happening here. I wouldn't even let you tell me that there's going to be an upset happening here.
No. Houston by 100.
Okay. So we have all of our first round games picked now. If you have made it this far, thank you. Don't forget, in order to submit your entry into our bracket contest, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Make sure you are following us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the social medias. And we will then provide you with our password to then enter this, and winner of our bracket challenge will get $50. No strings attached.
Straight out of my pocket. You don't have to put any money in. You just do the following, just few clicks, and you have a chance to win $50. Why not?
Few clicks, take a few minutes out of your day, and we'll get you right.
And support the right read, because we'll always bring you the right reads. But jumping into the round of 32, we'll kind of go back to the east side of the bracket. We have Duke and Ohio State. And I think we'll just kind of go through more of the picks, and just based on, I think a lot of these teams now we've watched throughout the year, and we have a pretty good pulse on, these matchups. Duke is just, the number 1 overall seed, and Ohio State's done great to finish out the season, make it in the tournament, but Duke ends it and heads to the Sweet 16.
Yep. I totally agree. I actually think, just based on matchups, if TCU were to beat Ohio State here, I like their chances against Duke better. Don't think they necessarily win. I like the Duke matchup against Ohio State, how they can guard, how they can score, I think is a little bit easier of a matchup for Ohio State. And I think, going back to what we've said, I think these top end 1 seed, 2 seed teams are going to kind of flex their muscles throughout this tournament.
Yeah, this is a fun matchup here. St. John's and Kansas. This one's a
Yeah,
tough
5 versus 4
one.
seed here.
Yeah, this one is a tough one. There's just so many variables that go into it. So I'll let you. I grabbed the Duke one pretty quick. I think this one's more of a toss up for me here. Who do you got for St. John's in Kansas?
Yeah, this one I'm gonna go with St. John's. Kansas is a team where if they get to the Final Four, I'm not going to be surprised. I might be less surprised than if St. John's gets to the Final Four. But in this particular matchup, I think the way that Rick Pitino coaches his teams to be ready for the moment, to be prepared for what the other team is going to throw at you in terms of sets, in terms of tendencies, in terms of strategies, and also in terms of best players, I think that Darren Peterson might get just negated essentially in this game, and he might not be able to take over. That is assuming he's even 100% healthy. I know he's been dealing with stuff. I like St. John's here. I think if you switch their seeds and told me St. John's was a 4 and Kansas was a 5, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I believe that. I think St. John's got a pretty bad seed, probably because of the weak Big East that they were in. What do you think about penciling in St. John's over Kansas here?
Yeah, I think I was leaning St. John's. I mean, you got the historic coaches of Bill Self and Rick Pitino. I think if I recall, they played last year as well. So they're matching up again, kind of a rematch. And I think St. John's I think they're catching fire. And I think that's what's so important about this tournament is who's going to catch fire, and kind of ride the wave of momentum into the tournament. And I think that's exactly what St. John's is doing. I think Kansas did the opposite. I think so. I'll pencil in St. John's there with you as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be quite the defensive game. Kansas, at least how I think of them, is typically high octane, high powered guards who can score, at least the big guys. You think of Embiid and some of the guys coming through there who can get a bucket at will. This team is very much prided on their defense, just like St. John's. They get down and gritty. I'm excited if that matchup happens. The next matchup, I don't know if I'm too excited if it happens because my team is involved. And we do have, as you mentioned at the start, this intersection of two of the teams that meet the KenPom top 25 criteria of historical past champions. Louisville, 6 seed versus Michigan State, 3 seed. I will defer to you as the non-Michigan State fan to go ahead and give your thoughts first.
Yeah. This is going to be quite the round of 32 matchup. Maybe the best one out there to tune into. I sketched up my own little bracket prior to jumping on this with you, Rob, and it hurts my soul, but it's also just the way it is. It's hard to pick against Izzo and Michigan State, just due to the preparation, how good of a coach Izzo is over I think it's second year at Louisville, possibly. I think it's going to come down to coaching. Like that's how close and similar these two teams are when you go to that, the top 25 rule. I think it's going to come down to coaching. I think Michigan State gets out of this in a 2-possession type of game. I think you guys will take this and beat Louisville.
Yeah, man, this is a tough one for me. I see vulnerabilities in my Michigan State squad. I know Tom Izzo's done what he's done in his career. I know we got the depth. I know Jeremy Fears is a super high-end scorer, super high-end in terms of our team, high-end scorer, high-end, obviously passer, kind of just trendsetter, playmaker. There's a pretty big drop-off, though, after him, and I worry about foul trouble, especially with him. I mean, don't even have to get into the extracurricular stuff that's happened, but I worry about that a little bit. I worry about how we might have maxed our season out when it comes to what we have on the roster, just in terms of the guys. You heard me talk about it throughout this whole thing, but I'm okay with penciling them in. You're going to see some of my brackets have this one as Louisville getting past us, though, and just being a kind of the end of the road for this Michigan State team. But we'll go ahead and pencil them in for now, and then move down to the 10 seed UCF Knights versus our 2 seed in this region, UConn. I see UConn here handling business. Even if UCLA makes it to this point, I think UConn is a pretty strong 2 seed here. And I think they'll make it on.
Yeah, I agree. We can pencil in UConn and head over to the West region to break down the round of 32
Yes.
over there. So we, starting at, 1 seed Arizona versus Utah State. I was even going a little bit back and forth with Utah State and Villanova, but Arizona is just a no-brainer. There's such a good team, so that's an easy win over Utah State.
Yes.
And you probably
Agreed.
don't have much to argue against that because
Nope.
the Wildcats are dominant.
Yes. Another 4 or 5 matchup, 4-seed Arkansas versus 5-seed Wisconsin. My eyes will be glued to the TV if we get this matchup in this round of 32. The backcourt talent in this game, the guards for both teams are just going to be off the chart. Maybe the best matchup of guards we could actually have throughout the whole entire tournament if you pick any two teams. I think this is one where I feel a little bit more confident in Arkansas because of their consistency. And Wisconsin's reliant on the 3-pointer can take them as far as Indianapolis. Again, if you told me they get there, I wouldn't be surprised. I think the coaching from Calipari with Arkansas, Darius Acuff, I still think as good as Blackwell and Boyd are for Wisconsin. I think Acuff is just, he's one of the elite guys, top 3 in the whole game right now. I would feel comfortable penciling Arkansas in over Wisconsin for those reasons, but do you have any objections?
Yeah, I think when you look at the bracket too, and you think about it this way, like we were discussing more of the Wisconsin High Point matchup and not even being like 100% sold on Wisconsin beating High Point just due to how their offense runs with High Point. And if we have Wisconsin moving on here and they do go out against a very high powered offense in High Point, then your Sweet 16's already screwed up right there. And right. Arkansas is a very well-coached team. And I think Acuff is going to just show out. I think this is his last year in college. He's going to be going to the NBA after this.
For sure.
I think Arkansas just overall, they're more athletic. And I think they'll find a way to slow down Boyd and Blackwell, unfortunately. And I think they'll move on to Arkansas.
Yeah. Next up, we got the 6-seed BYU Cougars going up against Gonzaga as the 3-seed. We didn't give much thought to Gonzaga in their first round matchup because, they've been here, they're prepared, they got a good system. I think that a lot of it's true here in this matchup too, but BYU, they're one of those, potentially sneaky good teams because of some of the talent they have. What are your initial thoughts if this matchup were to happen in the round of 32?
Yeah, this is another one to highlight too. It's me and you kind of went back and forth on that first round matchup. BYU, North Carolina State, potentially going either way where Texas could beat BYU if Texas does handle North Carolina State. We were kind of going back and forth on that matchup. I don't feel comfortable moving a team into the Sweet 16 if we're not on the same page with who we think is even going to win that first matchup. Gonzaga is they're a March team, well coached, and I think they will beat BYU and move on to Sweet 16.
Yep. Bottom matchup here in this West region: Missouri 10 seed versus Purdue, the Big Ten champions 2 seed. I'll go ahead and say Purdue's one of my favorites just to go all the way, just because of their recent turning the corner after they kind of hit that wall. Preseason number 1, Braden Smith as the point guard, Lawyer as the shooter, TKR as the kind of down low post. I really think they got it all. I don't see a 10 seed, even if Miami gets there as a 7 seed. I don't see them getting knocked off here.
Yeah, I got Purdue here too. They got that even Clough down low with TKR.
Yeah,
dominance down low, and then they got 2 dominant guards. Really, Fletcher Lawyer has been stepping up from 3. He's automatic from 3, and then you just have a facilitator in Smith. So yeah, they'll get the job done against Missouri.
Yeah. All right. Going down to the Midwest here, Michigan and St. Louis. I will take this one first as the non-Michigan fan. I think they're good. I think they're one of the best teams. I don't think St. Louis would challenge them. I think Georgia could maybe get them out of their element if Georgia wins that 8-9 matchup and maybe makes them a little bit confused for the first half. But we've seen it time and time again. Michigan can just overwhelm people with their defense and their switchability on defense. It seems like in this Big Ten tournament and even their matchups against Michigan State, everyone gets a bucket for these guys. You got role players coming in that just look like they would be an absolute star on 90% of the other college basketball teams. Unless you anticipate some kind of nasty upset here, I'm penciling in Michigan without giving it much thought.
Yeah, yeah. Michigan rides and smokes St. Louis. Got to ride with my dogs.
Yep, absolutely. Texas
All
Tech,
right.
Alabama, another 5-4 matchup. Texas Tech being the 5 seed, Alabama being the 4. Go ahead, give me your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, to speed it up a little bit, I will take Bama just with the JT Toppin. If they have JT Toppin, I'd take Texas Tech there. That's how
Okay.
much that impacts. Like I said, we did discuss, them figuring out a little bit. Yeah, they can figure out against Akron, but I don't think they have enough to overcome Alabama.
Would I be able to convince you in any way to take Texas Tech here over Alabama? Alabama is one of those teams. The defense, we know the defense in March can be really a telltale sign, and if you can't stop an offense, especially one that Texas Tech has figured it out in terms of having Christian Anderson step up with some of their recent games and how they've been able to handle Arizona, handle Iowa State, handle Houston. I mean, this is very much a very good Texas Tech team. Alabama scares me to pick them to do anything. Yeah, they could go cut down the nets, and I guess I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't love them too much. Could I convince you, Texas Tech here?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
We can
think
keep them in, but I'm
overall,
going to go on record here and say I like Texas Tech over Alabama in this particular match.
I think this one was one too where it's kind of a coin flip. So we can change it up to Texas Tech, and I think for the audience watching, I think that's just how close it is between these two teams. Where
Yes.
you're just gonna have to go with your gut. Maybe check out the first game, see how both teams look, and kind of make a decision from there. But yeah, I'm fine switching up to Texas Tech. I don't think it matters once they play Michigan. Either team is not going to.
I was just going to say that.
16.
Yeah, I think it's all for just one more game,
Yeah, yep. And then that brings us down to the 6-3 matchup with Tennessee and Virginia. So this one's this is when it gets tougher. We had we were kind of able to breeze through that round of 64. And then we get into round 32 where, this is another tough matchup. I'll let you go here. I have a pick in mind, but I kind of want to hear where you're at with this one.
Yeah, my pick, just based on if we have a healthy Tennessee team, I'm going with Tennessee over Virginia. I think the battle-tested nature of the SEC, I think Gillespie as a guard, I know Virginia's tough. They're obviously the 3-seed, higher seed here. I just like Tennessee. I like Rick Barnes' teams. I like the way that they're coached. I like the guard play that they have. I like the way they can defend and match Virginia in that regard. I would pick Tennessee here as a 6-3 upset. But obviously this is another one where if you feel passionately, we can pencil in Virginia.
Nope. That's exactly where I was leaning at. I need a little more convincing from you to be able to be confident.
That's fair. All right. You mentioned Santa Clara 10 seed being what you think is the best 10 seed in this tournament. They are going up against the Iowa State Cyclones as a 2 seed. This is a tough matchup for Santa Clara. Do you see this being a matchup that they can actually come away with against Iowa State?
I do not. I think Iowa State
keep it simple.
Keep it very simple. I think Iowa State is solid on both ends, and they're going to suffocate Santa Clara. When I can say confidently against Kentucky, but Kentucky's nowhere near Iowa State, and Iowa State's been through enough battles to be able to overcome a round of 32 matchup with Santa Clara.
For sure. Moving into the South, final region here. Florida 1 seed, Clemson 8 seed. Do we see an upset at any 1 seed in this round of 32, or is Florida moving on?
Florida's moving on. This is, kind of the analysis I kind of want the audience to think about too is, when you're going back and forth on that first, that round of 64, matchup, and you could go either way with a coin flip of Clemson or Iowa. I feel like it's hard to go unless you're confident in that first pick. You can't ride out that team, and Florida is a number 1 seed, and they've proven why throughout the year. So I got Florida beating Clemson.
Yep. Vanderbilt, Nebraska. I'm going to go ahead because I know you are on the Vanderbilt train and I'm on the Nebraska non-train. I think Vanderbilt Hill would be able to handle Nebraska. I think they'll continue to roll. I'm going to
Yep,
pencil
I
them in
agree.
without too much in-depth analysis.
Yep, I agree. Vanderbilt.
VCU and Illinois, I'll tell you what, I'll go on record here just by way of saying I don't like the Illinois team makeup. I think they're susceptible. They haven't won the games they have. They've blown double-digit leads. VCU is on a heater. They can score with Illinois. In my brackets, more times than not, if this matchup happens, I'm picking VCU. But I know you're a big Illinois guy. What do you think on this? Can we pencil in an 11-3 upset, or do you think Illinois turns the corner and figures it out?
I think I let you override the Alabama Texas Tech game pick.
Fair.
I don't think I can let you do this one.
Fair.
I don't know what the passion. I've no love for Illinois. I don't like Illinois whatsoever. But I think they're, Wagler could get hot. They got Boswell back now. Their bigs are great shooters. You can have, it's kind of like that Michigan team where you don't know who's going to be their leading scorer. You have anybody that could take over that game for Illinois. Yeah, they've blown, double-digit losses, which they got to figure out for this tournament. But I think Brad Underwood's, I think he's a great coach. And I think Illinois just takes out VCU. Their fire, their hot streak they're on is going to come to an end against Illinois in the round 32.
That's fair. Illinois is also going by the sports books odds for the national title, which only means so much, but they're up there. They're in the top 8, I believe. And as a 3 seed, they're the only 3 seed that's that high. So Vegas is confident in them. I got to believe my eyes at some point, but we'll go ahead and put Illinois in there. Final matchup in the round of 32, 7 seed St. Mary's versus 2 seed Houston. I like St. Mary's as a 7 seed in this tournament. I just think Houston Cougars are a buzzsaw. They made it all the way to the championship game last year. I think they'll kind of have that same energy throughout this tournament. I like them here against St. Mary's.
Yeah, Sampson, great coach for Houston, turn around that program really quick, and they're going to take care of business against St. Mary's and move on to Sweet 16.
All right, that concludes the round of 32. We'll kind of breeze through some of these Sweet 16 matchups now because we have talked about all these teams at least twice already. Duke versus St. John's. What do we think about this 1 seed versus 5 seed matchup in the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I got Duke in this one. I think it's just playing Duke this year, Michigan playing Duke, I think goes a long way in just my bias towards it's not even bias. It's just proven just stats and facts that Duke's they're a dominant team. And I just don't think many teams can beat them. Maybe once we get into the Final Four, we'll have better matchups to kind of discuss, but I got Duke over St. John's.
Yeah, no argument for me here. Duke's just rolling. They've been wire to wire, one of the best teams all year. And I think they won't have a problem here. Michigan State versus UConn. As the non-Michigan State fan, go ahead. Give me your thoughts again here first.
Yeah, this one, this one's tough for me even. I know you mentioned Michigan State and, the struggle they could go against Louisville. And I think that's the only reason I'm going to pick UConn over Michigan State is just because you as a Michigan State fan, you know your team better than anyone, definitely better than I do. If you think that there's a shot that they even lose Louisville, I don't feel confident in moving them to the Elite 8 when they could be out in the round of 32. So I got UConn beating Michigan State in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I like the chances of Michigan State beating UConn more than I like the chances of beating Louisville. For what it's worth, but I do get it. I don't think that they'll have a ton of legs in this tournament, so I'm fine with UConn in here. UConn's a damn good team. But we'll go ahead and move on to the West bracket, the hardest that I called the hardest at the start of this. Arizona versus Arkansas. We have maybe the best team in the country versus maybe the best player in the country. What do we think here between these two absolute powerhouses right now?
Yeah, I think Arkansas, unfortunately, just got a bad draw here, running to Arizona in the Sweet 16. Arizona has just been dominating pretty much every team that's been in front of them, and beat Houston a few times this year. So I just think Arizona is just too good to be losing in the Sweet 16. I think Arkansas will lose that game.
All right, then we have 3 seed Gonzaga, 2 seed Purdue. Are we going to go full 1 seed, 2 seed into the Elite 8 here on the top half of this bracket? Is Purdue going to take down Gonzaga?
I know whenever I see that I'm like, did I not think this through enough? If I have all ones and twos in there and it just seems so chalky and it's easy just to go chalk, but it's proven the last, 10 years of the tournament. I mean, it is very chalky. I mean, the ones, twos, three seeds are just the dominant teams in the brackets. But this is a 3-2 seed. I got it. We got a taste of Purdue today. We played Gonzaga in the beginning of the year, beat them by 40, beginning of the year. But overall, Purdue is getting hot at the right time, and I will take Purdue over Gonzaga here.
Yeah, I'm cool with that because I think Purdue could be, once we fill out this bracket, they might be the ones cutting it down. We'll see about this matchup when we get back to it. I'll have Gonzaga in some of my brackets here. I think they're just one of those teams. Again, they don't have the target on them right now. The spotlight is not on Gonzaga. It's on Purdue. Maybe it comes with extra pressure or just some stressors. And Gonzaga's a damn good team. They can score it. They obviously have the system. They know how to keep up with a team like Purdue. So it would be an amazing game to watch. Would be absolutely thrilled to have that matchup.
Sweet. And then
Michigan, Texas Tech in this Midwest, the easiest region that we call it. We talked about the Texas Tech Alabama matchup for a bit and said it's not ultimately going to matter because we do think Michigan's going to move on. So we'll pencil them in. Then we got our 6 seed Tennessee Volunteers versus the 2 seed Iowa State Cyclones. We could just go ahead and pencil in Iowa State Cyclones because of how dominant they have been, or we could get a 6 seed upset. What do we think here?
We're going to pencil in Iowa State. As much as we've kind of rabbed on Tennessee, they're a great team. I don't think their record proves, actually how good they are. But Iowa State's been doing it all year. They've stayed healthy, which I think is key. And they've all played together all year. So I got Iowa State advancing to play Michigan in the Elite Eight.
Fair enough. And then we're moving on to the South bracket. We have the 1 seed Florida Gators, 5 seed Vanderbilt Commodores. I know Florida I was going to say, I know Florida just lost to these guys in a pretty ugly fashion. I don't know if it's going to happen again. I think Florida is going to come prepared, come ready. There's something about the conference tournament. Some weird things happen sometimes. Florida won it last year. They're going to be looking pretty hungry to repeat, I think, or at least get back to the Final Four. I think this is where Vandy's run ends. What do you think?
Yeah. Them being my sleeper team, I was going back and forth on this one. And I think with Florida losing that game, I think they're going to come for revenge and, they have that March magic, like they did last year. And I think Golden's a pretty solid coach, and I think Florida will beat Vanderbilt, and I think that's where my Cinderella run ends right there.
Yeah,
not too crazy long of a run, but
yeah,
enough where they're running into the 1 seed.
Yeah, Illinois, Houston, great matchup. This one would be if it happens. Go ahead, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, raving about Illinois all year. I thought they were going to win the Big Ten tournament. Didn't end up happening, right into Wisconsin. This one, I don't think we would see eye to eye on, and I don't have a strong enough argument to pick Illinois over Houston. Put it on record here as well. I think Illinois beats Houston, but I think with me and you in agreement, I think Houston. I just don't have I don't have enough argument to pick Illinois over Houston, so I'll go with Houston with you. But I could see this one going Illinois' way. So this is one where for the audience, you guys just got to watch the games leading up to it and kind of determine from there. You kind of think about the previous matchups, kind of dissecting Illinois and seeing which team you think's gonna win. But I think we'll probably pencil in Houston and go 1-2 across all regions.
See, here I'm going to be devil's advocate. I think if Houston's one of my favorite teams in this tournament in terms of like how they're built, how they can win. If Illinois gets through the first round of 64, beats VCU or North Carolina in the round of 32, and gets to this matchup, that means they're clicking. That means they haven't unraveled. They'll be on fire. I mentioned they're in the top 8 favorites to cut down the nets at the end of the season. Vegas likes Illinois. They have all year. There's something to be said about that. Ken Palm loves Illinois. The advanced metrics do. They all love Houston just as much, if not more as well. For the sake of not having a 1-2 complete chalk tournament, I'm going to pencil in Illinois here. I know they're your darlings. We're going to go with them. I think if they can get this far, it'll be just a toss-up essentially, and I like them to score enough points and create enough juice to get past Houston.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm happy with that. I like that.
I know. I figured you would be. I was waiting for you to get done, and it'd be like, all right, fine, we can go with Houston, and then I dropped the ball on you. So yeah, we'll go back.
Talked a little bit too much before letting you get in a word on that. I should have just went with Illinois. And
no, you're good. I was waiting for it. I was kind of building up the suspense. I loved it. All right, we have our Elite Eight matchups now. We have Duke 1 seed, UConn 2 seed. This is one where, will the buck stop for Duke here? I think this is a tough matchup for them with UConn. I just don't see a team necessarily dethroning Duke unless it's honestly Arizona, Houston, Michigan. I think I'm going with Duke here. Any thoughts otherwise?
Yeah, no, I got Duke in this one as well.
Okay. Arizona Purdue might be the best matchup we get all tournament. This could be the national championship game based on how Purdue has played in the last week, but I personally think that could have been a little bit lightning in a bottle type of thing. They just kind of got fire at the right time. Arizona did the same thing in their conference tournament. They've done the same thing the whole year. I, again, don't see anybody beating Arizona other than a Duke, other than a Michigan, other than a Houston or those teams. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's Purdue. They'll lose their spark at some point in this tournament, and I think it ends in the Elite Eight when they go against Arizona. They just, like I said, these 1 seeds have just been dominant this year. Like it's just been going through their conferences and just dominating. So I got Arizona over Purdue as well.
Yep. Okay. So our first 2 teams in the Final Four in Indianapolis, we have penciled in the 2-1 seeds. No surprise, Duke Blue Devils and Arizona Wildcats. Moving on to the Midwest region, we have the Michigan Wolverines, Troy's team, and the Iowa State Cyclones as the 2 seed. Go ahead, and I know we typically let the other non-fan go first, but I'm curious if Michigan gets matched up against Iowa State, how do you see that matchup going for them?
Yeah, I think the size for Michigan is going to be the difference in this game because I think it is going to be a really, really close game. It's one of the ones where it could go either way, and that's coming from a Michigan fan that obviously, wants to easily pencil in Michigan to the Final Four. I'm still going to pick them to win this game, but I think it's going to be a very, very close game.
Yeah, this is one. I think Iowa State's dangerous. I think they could go in and beat anybody because of how they can swarm you and suffocate you on defense. I know I've been on record. I think Michigan's still the team to beat. I know Arizona's got the talent. We'll get to that Final Four matchup. We got 3 seeds in them or 3 1 seeds in them right now. So we'll talk a little bit more after we do this last final Elite Eight matchup of the Florida Gators, defending champs, versus our kind of darling, maybe the Cinderella team, if you can call them, the Illinois Fighting Illini. Man, what do you think? Can they dethrone the defending champs, Florida Gators, to move on to the Final Four as the only non-1 seed in our bracket?
Yeah, so I think this comes back to that top 25 rule. I think we're back at it where I finally have to just go with Florida over Illinois here. As much as, they could make it to the Final Four and the metric still holds true. I think Florida is going to overcome Illinois. I think they just something about March, like I mentioned. I think Florida ends Illinois' run here in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I think this is one where, if Illinois gets this far, I could also see them beating Florida. I could see them I think Florida's obviously the weakest 1 seed. So if there is a chance for someone to sneak in, I think it would be potentially Illinois or Houston coming out of this, the South region. So I think that I could see it for the sake of just having this all kind of chalked like last year, using the historical markers. I think we'll leave in Florida and have the most boring chalked Final Four that we possibly could have. But this is maybe where some of the juice comes in, because now we got all the 1 seeds going against each other. Duke and Florida, who's going to have the upper hand in that matchup?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Florida is the weakest one seed out of these four teams in the Final Four. Duke just with Boozer, and I know they're down Caleb Foster, which is a pretty big blow. He's not your takeover type of guy, but it's just an extra body that Duke doesn't
Hmm.
have. Is the stage going to be too big for Boozer? Some of these freshmen, Isaiah Evans, is it going to be too big? I don't think so. Boozer is
Yeah.
just a dominant force. He's just, I mean, when he wants to take over, like I watched the Virginia game, he grabbed every board he wanted to get. He went to the rim and scored at
Gets to
will.
the paint. Yep.
Yeah, no, they just couldn't stop him, and that's a really good Virginia defense that they have. And yeah, he just took over, and I don't think the stage will be too big, and I think Duke will head to the national championship.
Yeah, I agree. I think if this is the matchup, or even if it's not the matchup, honestly, whoever comes out, I don't love Florida to come out of their own region. We just talked about it, right? Maybe it's
Yep.
Illinois, maybe it's Houston. I honestly think those teams might give Duke a more of a challenge. I just think, like you said, Boozer can take over. Shire has absolutely kept that program at the elite level that Coach K left it at when he went
Yep.
out. Moving on then to the next Final Four matchup, Arizona Wildcats versus your Michigan Wolverines. If I see the run ending for Michigan, I see it ending here. I think Arizona has turned the corner from a really good team to one of the best by far. And they have elevated their game in every way. They've played so many different styles of play in the Big 12, and they have handled all of their tests very, very well. I think the difference for me in this one is how Arizona looked going against the top end talent in their conference tournament versus Michigan, not necessarily handling Purdue. If we just use the transitive property of Arizona beating Purdue in the Elite Eight matchup and Purdue beating Michigan in the Big Ten tournament championship, I would pencil in Arizona here just because of that. But I will give you the floor to make the case for the Wolverines going all the way to the national championship.
Well, it's funny. This is Final Four on my birthday. Okay, so it'd
Oh,
be
yes, it is.
what a great birthday gift if Michigan could just take the dub over Arizona and reach the championship game. But I don't think it happens. I think we look back at it just coming from a fan that's watched every single game. LJ Kaysen, I think, is the team just hasn't looked the same since LJ
Mhm.
Kaysen went out.
Not as dominant.
Not as dominant. You just don't have anybody to relieve Cadeau if he gets into foul trouble. When Cadeau was off the floor, the team just doesn't have that facilitator, someone to run the offense. When Case would come in, they really wouldn't lose a beat, even with Cadeau off the floor. And I think that's the difference maker. I think if LJ Kaysen is still with the team, still playing, I think I would give the edge to Michigan here, because I think they would have. I'm not going to make excuses, so I won't speak on it too much further. But I think the LJ Kaysen injury is going to hurt them, and I think Arizona does beat Michigan. Unfortunately, I don't get my birthday gift, and I'm pretty upset on my birthday. So that's
Oh
awesome.
man, well, your birthday gift can be the fact that they are cutting down some nets and getting to go to Indianapolis as a Final Four team. Yeah, I know that's not winning at all, but that's a
Yeah,
win in some stretch of college basketball.
yeah,
And I think we've talked about injuries in this tournament with the teams, how they affect not only the top end production you get, but also the depth and how that affects rotations, how that affects game planning. And I think Arizona hasn't necessarily dealt with anything like that. And I think if they stay healthy and they are able to ride the wave that they have, I can see them dethroning Michigan, not dethroning, but taking down Michigan here,
yeah.
advancing to play Duke in the national championship, where this would be two absolute heavyweights going at it in this fight. Uh, I don't know who I would go with in this one. This is a phenomenal matchup. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who we got cutting down the nets in the end?
Yeah, so I think this is where the experience comes into play.
Yes.
As much as I wanted to ride Duke the whole way, win it all, I think, like you mentioned, Arizona went from one of the top teams to like elite. I think Duke and Arizona are your two elite teams right now, going into the tournament. And then Michigan a little bit behind them, but I got Arizona beating Duke in the championship and cutting down the nets as your new 2026 national champions.
I have to agree. I love the point about the experience. Duke's led by Boozer, obviously. He seems like he's been in college for 4 years, just absolutely dominating, and he might continue to play like that. He might not ever skip a beat. I just think Arizona's got the talent. They got the freshman talent. They got the upperclassmen talent. Arizona's been a team, man. I feel like I've been on their high horse the last few tournaments and a few of their times where they're super highly rated. They got the momentum, they got the advanced metrics, and then they've gotten bounced a couple times. And so they're kind of like, they're supposed to be on my blacklist of teams to like pick them to get upset early. But I almost just gotta I gotta ride with it. You know, I picked them so many times. I've been burned by them so many times. If this isn't the year, I don't know if they do have the year. So I'm good with Arizona versus Duke. How many total points scored? We'll make this easy. Let's say the final score is 73-70 and we have 143 final points. I mean,
okay.
I don't think we got to like spend too much time analyzing that. But you know, in case we have a tiebreaker, this could come into play. That's just a really common college basketball score. And we'll give the whole scenario for the audience. It's going to be 70-70 tied, 5 seconds on the shot clock. Bradley's going to get an inbound pass. He's going to take the 3-pointer. He's going to make it. Duke's going to take a half court at the end, not make it in. And that's going to be the national championship Arizona Wildcats. We'll go ahead and submit this bracket into the Right Read podcast bracket group. But this is, you know, kind of what we thought live. You know, this is just a few hours after brackets have been revealed. Still a lot of information in terms of injuries and game times. I think that could maybe sway some of this. So obviously do your own research, but this has been a pleasure to be able to walk through this with you guys. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add, Troy, about any of the bracket things or anything like that, but go ahead if there is.
No, we got Arizona winning it all. Like Rob said, to enter into our bracket group, it is Right Read Podcast is the name of it. I'll give you all the details, the passcode to get into that bracket group. Just making sure that you are subscribing to our YouTube and also following our TikTok, which is Right Read Podcast on TikTok. Once you do get both those done, you can leave a comment on our TikTok post that we will have up later. We'll also have a Twitter post up later that you can comment on as well. And then I will direct message you for that passcode for you to join into our bracket group.
Yeah, well, that was awesome. Let's call it a wrap on those great discussions we had today around the bracket. Again, one of the best weeks of the year are upon us. I am so excited. If you viewers loved this, if you even hated it, if you thought we were way off on some of our predictions, make sure to leave a comment, engage with us, tune back in next week. After all of our brackets are already busted, we'll have our next episode ready, reacting to the first weekend of games and a look ahead at our Sweet 16 matchups. Thanks, y'all, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.